professor here at Prince George's Community College. Give me just 1 second. I had a minute. I had a little bit of a challenge logging in. So I'm in now. Let's start. So let's see, we've got a few more people coming in, so we'll wait until everybody has entered the system. I think that I must need to adjust my camera. There it is. Perhaps the tech team can tell me how to get my camera right side up. Just turn it this way. Okay, is the camera better? Let me need to adjust a little more, guys. Sorry. Able to see me. Okay, we're gonna go with that. My apologies for not giving you all a better picture in terms of the camera, but we're gonna get started. So I'm gonna share my screen. I think we've got a few people in here, so welcome. I'm gonna share my screen now. I have to tell you just a little bit about me. I am an adjunct professor, part-time adjunct professor here at Prince George's Community College. I work with the business and entrepreneurship department. I teach primarily introduction to business. During the day, I work as the deputy director of the Maryland Small Business Development Center. And in that capacity, I actually manage the operations of the program. And we call it the SBDC. And I'll tell you guys just a little bit about it when we get closer to the end. It's a SBA resource partner, and so that should be cool for you all to hear about. So I am going to get started. Can you all see my presentation? Can you see the presentation?
Yeah, I can see it.
Oh, could you hold just a second? I forgot about. You want to join? Okay, okay, okay. So okay, so you all can see the presentation. Great. Got a couple more people coming in. I'm going to keep admitting people as I keep going. So let me get started. Again, welcome. Want to get to know a little bit about everyone that's here. There are a few of us, so we'll be able to have a really good interactive session here. So tell me a little bit about why you guys are interested in this class. Are you a current entrepreneur? Are you a future entrepreneur? Are you just exploring and just trying to figure out, what are some options for me? Tell me a little bit about where you are. You can actually add that in the chat, or you can unmute yourselves. There are so few of us that we can probably just unmute yourselves and start talking if you like. So let me hear some ideas or some reasons why you guys are here. No, when you all are just here because your instructors told you to get extra credit? Okay, great. Exploring. Exploring. You want to be a future in physical therapy? Wonderful, wonderful. Anyone else? Okay, let's move on to the next question. And hopefully you guys would, again, you can also unmute yourself so you can write in You can write in the chat, learning more about entrepreneurship. Great, thank you. Thank you for responding. So what are you hoping to learn from this class? There are some, oh, you have interest in going into entrepreneurship route and extra credit. Yeah, great. Extra, that's okay, Matthew. We will go with extra credit anytime we can. Exploring the option, great, great. Thank you, thank you. So what are you guys hoping to learn from this class? We've got about an hour together, and so what are your interests? Are you, and if some of you all have kind of said it in terms of discussing your status, and I'm going to try to, I'm actually going to do some rearranging here. No, I'm not going to mess with this. But so in terms of your status, some of you have already said that. So trials and tribulations on being an entrepreneur, how to start investing or being able to find investors and ways to fund the startup. So let me tell you a little bit about what we're actually going to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about just the general definition of entrepreneurship. I actually have a colleague of mine, Jennifer Fun, who's going to teach a how to start a business in Maryland class on Wednesday as a part of this series at 4:30 also. Since I don't want to steal her thunder, and she has a really comprehensive session on actually starting the business and the things that you need to go into it. What I want to talk to you about is this really something, is this for me? Is entrepreneurship for me, or should I be thinking about some other routes? So let's move on, tell you a little bit about what we're going to talk about. So we're going to first look at the definition of an entrepreneur. Then we're going to discuss 5 important questions that you need to ask if you're considering starting a new business. And then we're also going to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of entrepreneurship. So we're going to get the answers that some people had had. So, and the next steps, if you want to go forward, we're going to talk about a few of the next steps you need to take. Okay. So tell me, what is an entrepreneur? And I'm hoping that you all will all sort of just raise your hands or unmute yourselves and just tell us what you think an entrepreneur is. Anyone have any suggestions or any comments or any thoughts about that? Individuals who invest in a business, okay. Any other thoughts? Someone who seeks to provide products and services through a business. Excellent. Owning your business. Good thoughts. Good suggestions. So let me ask you a different question. What's a business owner? Type your answers in the chat. What's a business owner? Or someone can unmute themselves. Tell me, what's a business owner? Does anyone think there's a difference between being an entrepreneur and being a business owner? So business owner is someone providing services to the community. Okay, okay. Any other responses regarding the definition of a business owner? And we're thinking small businesses. So we're going to focus on small businesses. So is there a difference between being an entrepreneur and being a business owner? Just in the chat, yes or no? Quick poll, yes or no? Is there a difference? Yes. Okay. Okay, so I have a few of you all that think yes. So would one of you all like to come online and tell me why you think that, what the difference is? What you think the difference is? One or two of you all? Or you can type it in the chat if you like. So I have 1, 2, so about 5, 7 of you all say yes, and about 2 or 3 people say no. Someone was, oh, Matthew, did you want to speak?
Yeah, like entrepreneur is someone that can provide a certain skill to a customer.
Mm-hmm.
And like a business owner is someone that like owns a property or like a license, like an LLC.
Oh, okay, okay. That's interesting. That's definitely one of the, could be one of the differences or part of the differences. I have another one. I have Anthony. It says business owners might not be actively involved in the company. They can be investors or someone who put money into the business. Yeah, if you're a shareholder in a business, you absolutely can. Let me give you all a difference that I have found from Investopedia. So according to Investopedia, an entrepreneur is an individual who creates a new business. They're commonly seen as the innovator or a source of new ideas, goods, services, businesses, or procedures. How do you all feel about that definition? Anybody have any comments? Does that definition sound right to you? You think there may be some things missing about that definition? What do y'all say? So I mean, sounds right, okay, okay, that's good. A small business, on the other hand, usually deals with known and established products and services. Is that what you all were thinking when you thought about a business owner versus a small business? That one's really about probably the process of starting a business. One's an innovator, one's doing what's new and what's different, and the other one is really is doing the work and working with established products and services. Have you thought about that? Can they be both? Can someone be both an entrepreneur and a business owner? Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And so what I'm going to talk about more is whether or not one wants to be a business owner, because how many times have we heard about a serial entrepreneur? We hear about serial entrepreneurs all the time. They are oftentimes people who are extremely innovative and they have these great ideas and they start these ideas. They're frequently starting their new ideas and frequently going forward and creating new innovations. Maybe it's a new way to, maybe it's a new process. Amazon, was that started by an entrepreneur or a business owner? What do you guys think? What do we think? Entrepreneur or business owner? Entrepreneur, okay. Anthony says entrepreneur. Anyone else? So Anthony, you say entrepreneur. I'm seeing more people saying entrepreneur. So if you all think, and I believe it's Jeff Bezos, if you think he's an entrepreneur, delivery systems have been around forever. The post office has been delivering for how many years? So how do we think that the person who created Amazon, why do we think that's an entrepreneur? That was created in an entrepreneurial effort. The process, absolutely. Thank you, Siobhan. Absolutely. The new business procedures, perfect, absolutely. So I don't know if you guys need this class, so you all already have an idea of that. So let's move forward. Let's keep going. But thank you. Those are great responses. And that's exactly what's the difference, what makes the difference between the entrepreneur and the business owner. The business owner may also be an entrepreneur and entrepreneurial in their pursuit of the business deal, but they may or may not be, but they're not necessarily going to be an entrepreneur. So let's move on. So next, I want to talk about some things you want to consider before deciding to pursue entrepreneurship. And these are personal issues. These are more things that you might consider from a personal perspective. Are you a self-starter? Entrepreneurs you don't work for anyone, so you don't have anyone saying, well, you've got to be here at 10 o'clock every morning or 9 o'clock every morning, and you've got to do X, Y, and Z. You've got to be able to, on your own, say, this is important to me, and I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure it happens. And if I need to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, I don't need anyone to tell me I have to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning. So you've got to be a self-starter. How well do you plan and organize? If you're an entrepreneur, if you're considering pursuing an entrepreneurial avenue, You need to be well organized. You need to be able to plan, because that's a big part of the process. Even though they're innovators, and a lot of times people think that innovation kind of happens, it doesn't just happen. It actually is a lot of work that goes behind innovation, a lot of planning, a lot of thought, a lot of organization. So that's an important piece of the innovation process. Can you work long hours? How many people have said, I am going to start my own business so I can work when I want to work, so I can have flexibility? How many of you all have thought that? Yep, exactly. Not always the case, not always the case. How's the business going to affect your family? I have, there's nothing that will have, well, there are other things, but there are a few things that will have as big an impact on your family as starting a business or even operating a business. It is really important that you make sure that your family members are on board with you when you want to start a business, or at least are willing to give you the space to start that business, because that's an important consideration. Are you passionate about your idea? It's a little hard to get passionate. It's a little hard to work the long hours to plan and to organize about something that you sort of so about. You have so feelings about it. So you want to be passionate about the idea. Are you resourceful? Can you identify ways to get the things done? Because you may not have enough money to actually start the business venture. So you've got to figure out, what are my other resources? What resources are available to me? So you've got to be resourceful. Are you a good communicator? You've got to be able to help everyone understand your idea, because that's one of the things you're going to have to. One of the most important things we tell entrepreneurs that they need to have is an elevator pitch. You need to be able to quickly tell a potential investor or customer or client what about your product and why your product is better than the competitors and the alternatives to your product. So you've got to be a good communicator. Are you a good salesperson? You have to sell. If you're an entrepreneur and you're in it for the purpose of making a profit and for making money, then you must be able to sell. And the last one is, can you persevere? Can you persevere through those hard times when it seems like this is just not going to work out, those late night hours when you feel like you're at the end of the rope, but you know that you need to do one more thing. Can you persevere? It does take quite a bit to become an entrepreneur. Now, how many people think that they have meet the profile for 5 of these things? Or actually, how many people think they're all? How many people think you're at 5 of them? Did you register? Okay. How many people think you're less than 2 or fewer than 3? Only 2 or 3 of these things. Well, you don't have to say, but if you think that only 2 or 3 of these things apply to you, that doesn't mean you can't be an entrepreneur or a small business owner. That just means you've got to figure out, you've got to either make some decisions to change something about the way you do things, or you've got to decide, this is important enough to me that I'm going to either surround myself with people who have these skills and can help me in these areas where I'm not as strong, and move forward with that. I am not a believer of you have to be an entrepreneur to start a business. You've got to have an entrepreneurial mindset. You can develop it, you can learn it, is what I believe. So let me talk about what entrepreneurship is not. You're not going to get rich quickly. Some people do, but that's the exception to the rule. For the most part, it takes several years, months, days. It takes a long time to get to that point where you've got a product that's going to make you wealthy. Oftentimes it takes several tries and misses. How many times have we heard about someone that finally make it and hit it big on the 10th business that they've started, or they've started 8 or 10 or 12 or 20 businesses, and they don't hit it big until they get to ideal number 20. So you've got to know, you may not get rich quickly. You could, but you may not. Flexibility may not come immediately, as we talked a lot as I talked about in the beginning. You've got to work some really long hours, and you've got to really persevere through this whole process. And so if you're not doing that, if you're doing that, you're not going to have the same flexibility that you would have if you weren't. So flexibility, it will come eventually, but that's once you're at the point where you're actually working on your business and not in your business, you'll have a little more flexibility. But when you're starting out and you're in the early parts of the process, that flexibility may not come immediately. This is not the solution to, I just have a horrible boss and I want another job. This is not the solution to that, because as we talked about earlier, there's so many things that go into entrepreneurship that are so much harder than working at a job with a boss that's maybe not a bad boss. Maybe what you need to do is get another job, and that's okay. That's okay. Not everyone's cut out to, not everyone wants to be a small business owner. And finally, it doesn't always have all the glitz and glamour that you imagine as an entrepreneur. I chose this picture because you see you've got the cleaning supplies there. There have been many a days when an entrepreneur finds that they're the ones who have to clean the toilets in the place because there's no one there to clean, or they don't have a cleaning crew come in because maybe you're not at that point yet where you can afford to have the nightly cleaning crew come in. So you've got to do the cleaning. So think about, these are the things that entrepreneurship is not. So let's move on to questions that we want to ask when you're deciding whether or not to start a new business. I have 5 that I'm going to go through and wanted to hear some concepts, and actually would love to hear if you all have any specific concepts. I did see one earlier on. I think you said you were going to do a, let me go back. I'm just scrolling back a little bit. Can't find it. Someone put in a specific type of business they were interested in starting. Okay, I don't see it now, so I'm missing it. So let me just start with an example. Suppose we want to start a business that is a specialty boutique for women, a writing business. A writing business is an interesting one. So writing. When you say writing, Siobhan, do you mean an author, being an author? Are you thinking about, give me a little more about that one. Maybe we can explore that. Consulting with school districts. Okay. Those are different ideas to support teachers. Okay. That's an interesting idea. Let's run with that one. So what's your idea? So your idea is writing to consult with school districts, or consulting with school districts to support teachers. What kind of support are you talking about for teachers? Does that idea suit your personality and interests? Are you a teacher? Are you a former teacher? Are you married to a teacher? Do you have a lot of friends who are teachers? What's your connection to the educational field? Right? And so it's to help teachers learn how to write. Okay, so there's a need there. Okay, so then you do have experience in that. Another question is, what exactly is the product? And you notice that I kept asking you to give me a little more because I wanted you to really hone in on what the product is, because a writing business could be very broad. And so it's really important that you are able to clearly hone in on your idea and your business concept. So now that I'm seeing more of it, I'm seeing how you're honing in on that. Who are your competitors? They're always competitors. Who thinks they might, could someone give an example of a competitor of a writing business that is focused on teaching, on helping teachers to write, supporting teachers in their writing? What are the alternatives to having someone actually teach them, support them in that way? What about Grammarly? Or Microsoft Word? Oftentimes, if you're typing and you're using the grammar functions in that, they'll help you with the grammar piece. Grammarly will oftentimes help you go beyond the local tutoring companies, exactly. So there are a lot of alternatives to your business. So you've got to make sure that you're aware of who your competitors are, because all of those who provide alternatives are your competitors. And so you want to make sure you understand them. What's your product life cycle? Essay writing, patenting the ideas. Okay. What's the product life cycle? Do you guys understand what I mean by the product life cycle? Does anybody have an idea what that means? No, can you explain? Yes, Matthew, I can. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you all for the honesty. Okay, how long it is in demand? That Jerry Siobhan, Jerry, that is the right answer. The product life cycle begins at inception, and that's when the product is first introduced to the customer. And then there's the growth stage. That's when the product is really blowing up, and everybody wants a piece of it, and everyone wants to buy it, and the demand is really high. A lot of businesses fizzle out at that point because they don't have the support or the infrastructure to meet that increased demand. And so a lot of times you'll find that there'll be a lot of businesses will fizzle out at that point. But the next stage is that maturity stage when you're sort of rocking and rolling, you know what the demand's going to be. You're able to meet that demand. You're able to, you've figured out what the right pricing is for that product. And you're just you're on an even keel. So you know what you can pretty much estimate what your monthly income is going to be, what your monthly revenues and expenses are going to be. And then there's the time when it begins to go out. The product begins to go into that stage where it's no longer in demand. It's no longer needed. You know, there have been maybe there's some alternatives out there that are much better than your product. And so that's what we're talking about in the product life cycle. And you want to make sure that you understand that life cycle and that you're able to be in position to set yourself up to be able to respond to each individual level within that life cycle. And finally, you want to know, and finally, you want to make sure you're focused on whether or not it's going to be financially viable. I probably should put that first because that is the most important piece when you're talking about starting a business. Is it going to be financially viable? The purpose of starting a for-profit business is to make a profit. And a profit means your revenue exceeds your expenses. It's as simple as that. If you don't have that in place, if your revenues are not exceeding your expenses, and it could be over time, but if your revenues don't at some point exceed your expenses, then maybe you have a hobby. Maybe it's not a business. So the second question you want to ask is, do you have a marketing plan? And I say specifically a marketing plan. We all know that we have to have a business plan, and that sort of lays out the structure of the company and all of the other general stuff. But do you have a marketing plan? A lot of times businesses run into trouble because they don't have a identified marketing plan. They haven't clearly identified the target market. So the target market for Siobhan's business idea, it's not necessarily all teachers. A lot of people say, well, it's anyone who's a teacher. Not necessarily. A lot of teachers, first of all, are not going to avail themselves of that service because they just don't have the interest. So a lot of teachers are just not going to do that. So that may not be your target market. You're probably going to have to really kind of hone in. You know, are they teachers in a certain age group? Are there teachers at a certain point in their career? Maybe it's teachers at the beginning of their career, or maybe it's teachers sort of in the middle of their career. So you've got to really hone in on your target market. Maybe it's just teachers in a certain geographical area. So that's something you need to hone in on. How are you going to reach your customers? If they're teachers, maybe the best way to reach them actually is to be able to get into the school and post a flyer on the teachers board, or maybe the teachers have maybe teachers in schools have certain Slack accounts or different kinds of social media accounts, and you can become members of, maybe they have a Facebook group or something like that, and you become a member of that. You can deal with the trade organization. That's also another way to figure out how you would reach teachers. So maybe you want to deal with the trade organization that the teachers are part of. What's your marketing plan? I'm going to give the other three in here too. What's your marketing plan? What's your advertising plan? And what's your sales strategy? They are not the same. Marketing is sort of that overarching concept that deals with communicating the value of your product or service, and also dealing with the delivery of the product and service. So let me go. Well, I'll go back to the 4 Ps. So when you're talking about marketing, you're talking about price, product, promotion, and place. Price is, what's the right price? What's the right price for my product? And that is, what price will people pay? How are they going to value my product? Promotion is, how am I going to let people know about my product? How am I going to let people understand the value proposition in my product? That's the promotion. Place is, How are people going to get access to my product? So those are the things you have to consider. So when you're looking at an advertising plan, you're really just dealing with promotion at that point. And you want to have a detailed approach or detailed strategy for how you're going to promote your product. Same thing with sales strategy. You need a detailed strategy as to how you're going to actually sell your product. So those are different. So those are things you need to look at when you're thinking about marketing. Have you tested the market? Again, that's another piece of marketing, but it is a critical piece of the marketing process. Is your product viable? How can you find that out? You can do focus groups, you can do surveys, you can actually just, you can ask around and try to figure out, what are your competitors? You know, are people buying your competitor's product? What is it about your competitor's product that makes people want to buy it? So you can look at that piece. The other piece is it sustainable? That means, can it be replicated? Can you continue to replicate this product or service so that you can continue to grow and continue to have to grow the business? And the next one is your market growing? If you've developed a product or service for a declining market, that may not be the best strategy, because that means your product life cycle is going to be a whole lot shorter. And unless you've got something that's dealing with the new market that's coming out, or that emerging market, then you're going to be in a situation where you've got a business that lasts for a year because your product's no longer needed, because you're dealing with a declining market. Is there a current need in the marketplace? Again, that goes back to, are people going to purchase the product? If no one needs it, it could be a wonderful product. It could be absolutely the most innovative thing ever. But if no one needs or wants it, you're not going to be able to sell it to people. And finally, again, you've got to focus on your competitors. I'm saying this several times because competitors, it's critical that you understand who your competitors are, and that you understand how to distinguish your product or service from those of your competitors. And I always tell people to interpret that word competitor very broadly. You've got to take a broad approach to the competitor. Do you have cash flow projections? I talked about profit, which is revenue less expenses equals profit. Cash flow projections also helps you to deal with the inflows and the outflows, the seasonality of money coming in. Sometimes you may have a product that is seasonal, and so maybe you've got a landscaping business or something like that, and yes, the seasonality of that is that it's huge. It's a huge business for about 5 or 6 months. For the other 7 months, there's not much going on unless you come up with some other offerings that deal with the seasonality piece. But if you're just a landscaper and you're just going to do that stuff that happens in the 5 to 6 months that people need to have their grass cut, and they need to plant flowers, and they need to have mulch done. If you're going to focus on that piece of it, then you've got to look at your cash flow projections, because you're going to make a lot of money during those months that are up, but in those down months, you're not going to make very much money, and your business needs to sustain for the entire year. And so you've got to pay attention to when you're in your inflow and outflows of your cash. That's a big important thing. So do you have startup money? Even if you have, but first of all, most startups don't get bank financing. That's extremely difficult, but some do. And there are some financing options out there, but there are very few financing options out there that will give you money if you're not bringing some cash to the table. So that's really important to make sure you've got enough money to start up. Again, that's looking at your monthly expenses. That's your way to deal with the outflows of cash when you're looking at your cash flow. What's your break-even point? This is a simplified definition. This is not the accounting definition of break-even, but it is revenue. It's when your revenues equal expenses. So it's when you're able to cover all of your fixed and variable expenses with the revenues that are coming in. That's when you break even. And profit happens after you break even. That's when you have profit. What's your cost per customer? That's a way to look at how much you're spending to acquire customers, how much you're spending to satisfy customers. That's a really big piece. That's a way that you can compare across different product lines and different service lines. Your cost per customer is a good thing to look at. What's your return on investment? What's the ROI? If you put in $20, how much will you be able to get out of that? It's just as simple as that. And that's a really important consideration. Do you have a support team? I talked about how important it is for your family, that your family supports you and that your family understands what you're doing. Do you have a support team? Do you have advisors? Those are your mentors. Those are other small business owners. You'll find that most small business owners are happy to help you. Even if you're in the same industry, usually not if you're in the same neighborhood, in the exact same market, but if you want to open up a dry cleaner, I would go to a dry cleaner that's in another market and they will give you a great deal of information. I find that small business owners are big sharers and they're happy to help each other to acquire, to get to the point that they've reached. You have teachers, business consultants. That's the organization that I work for during the week, Small Business Development Center. They have business consultants. Economic development centers have business consultants. Women's business centers, the VBOX. There are a number of different organizations, and there are also private business consultants. You could have, let me just let somebody in. There are private business consultants. So you want to make sure you've got someone to help you to understand the processes and what you need to do. And finally, you need to have someone who can assist you, right? You need to have lawyers. You need to have a lawyer. You need to have a CPA. You need to have an insurance agent. You need to have some marketing professionals. These are people that can help you to make sure you are maneuvering this whole entrepreneurial journey correctly, because there are things that may seem like they're easy and second nature, but you'll find out that there are some little idiosyncrasies or this little piece that you maybe didn't completely understand. And it's hard for any one person to understand every bit of it. So you want to make sure that you have people in place who are going to support you in your effort and can help you out. So let's talk a little bit about the advantages and the disadvantages. So let's talk some more. I'm going to open up the chat again. What are some advantages of owning a business that you guys can think of? You can either unmute yourselves or you can post it in the chat.
Tax write-off.
Profit.
Oh, you're tax write-off.
Yes.
Mm.
You can share your own innovative ideas, flexibility. Tax write-off, I heard, was one of the ones that tax write-off. Preparing for financial freedom down the road. Yes. Great. I'm going to show you all some of the ones that I have. Independence. You do get to make your own business decisions. Direct contact with customers, employees, and suppliers. You can decide who your suppliers will be. You can decide who your customers can be. If you are a small business owner, you may want to fire a customer or two that you're not getting much of a return on investment from. Empowerment, Siobhan, thank you. Empowerment. This is right. This is right. Personal satisfaction. That's doing something that you have a passion for. That's getting into that whole. I've got the passion. I've got a passion for this idea, and that's being able to really live your passion. That makes a lot of difference. It does a lot for satisfaction. The opportunity to create wealth. Yes, a lot of wealth, and generational wealth for that matter, is created through business ownership. A lot of people don't always think of it from that perspective, but that is a big generator of generational wealth. Is business ownership. Opportunity to be creative. Yes, absolutely. Opportunity to be creative. And finally, is doing something that contributes to others. Businesses can also be good. They can also be good neighbors. They can also help the community. And so that's definitely an option. And I saw have empowerment. I think I already mentioned that. So let's talk about the disadvantages of owning a business. Let me see what you guys have. Let's see it in the chat. Liabilities. And also you can unmute yourself and talk to me if you want to do that also. Financial slowdowns, lots of responsibilities, absolutely. One big disadvantage for business owners, not having a good ROI, absolutely. One big thing, we had the pandemic that just happened. Someone talks about financial slowdown. That was a huge financial slowdown for us, for some businesses, but interestingly enough, it was really good for other businesses. The death of the business, yeah. That was, the pandemic in a lot of ways was great. I mean, who can we think of that really benefited from the pandemic? We just talked about Amazon. Everyone was, exactly, Amazon. Everybody was ordering everything from home. And it was great to not have to leave your house because we're being told, don't leave your house. And you need to get some things. So another business, Instacart, Uber, yeah, food service, delivery services. They did a good job. They did really well in this. Some of the disadvantages being very undisciplined. Yeah. Let me go through some of the ones that I have. You have a lot of bosses. That's why I said earlier, this is not a solution to a bad boss, because instead of one bad boss, you can now have 20 or 30 bad bosses, because your customers and your suppliers are your bosses at this point. There's a huge financial risk. We always caution individuals from using your retirement funds or using unless you've really done your homework. Because you could lose it all, unfortunately. It could be something that's not necessarily your fault. The pandemic, if you had just started a massage business in March of 2020, you could be in a lot of trouble, and if you had risked all of your financial, maybe your retirement account or whatever financial resources you have, and you started something. No one was getting massages in March, after March of 2020. And it's probably just I think those businesses just starting to come back. And that was something that no one could have anticipated that. The hours are long and they are hard. The income is unsteady. We talked about the seasonality, but it could just be, there are other cyclical issues that could result in unsteady income. You know, the most important, the buck stops with you. If there's a problem, it's on you. It's on you. And you can't just quit. You can't just say, you know what, I don't want to do this. You've got to dissolve your business. Well, depending upon your structure, you're going to have to dissolve the business. You're going to have to find ways to deal with any customers or that are out. You have customers, you owe things to your customers. You need to deliver to those customers. Or maybe you need to return their money if they've already paid you or something like that. So you can't just say, you know what, I'm not coming back tomorrow. You can't just quit. And then you're going to have a lot of people, family, friends, others who are going to say, this is not a good idea. You shouldn't do this. But you've got to persevere through even the naysayers, because that is one of the disadvantages of starting a business, is that you're going to have a lot of naysayers. Okay. So you've decided that after all of that, you think you want to start a business. You're saying, okay, I think I have what it takes to start this business. I think that I have the right personality. I am a good communicator. I'm a self-starter. I am committed to this. I am passionate about this product and purpose. I have done my business plan. I've done all the research that I need to do. I have a clear understanding of my target market, and I'm ready to move forward. I'm going to tell you to keep researching. That's what you keep researching, to make sure that you have a more than clear understanding. Make sure, and you want to run your ideas and your thoughts past someone else. So you want to do the research. You can identify what the resources are that are out there to help you with your business venture. You want to identify what resources, financial resources, again, consulting resources, and also, the insurance and all of those other types of resources, accounting resources. If you don't know how to pay, if you don't know how to read your account books, if you don't know how to understand the inflows and outflows of cash, that could get you in a lot of trouble. So you have local libraries are great resources to do marketing research. They have a number of just absolutely phenomenal databases that give you a great deal of information. There are databases out there that can tell you how many cars drive by a certain corner. So that's the kind of information you want to make sure that you're capturing, so as you identify your target market, and as you determine if you're going to do a brick and mortar business, where you're going to locate it, right? If you're online, you need to know what types of people come to the kinds of website well, what kind of website you need to have to attract your target market. Read some books. There are a lot of great books out there. The Entrepreneur Mind, E-Myth Revisited, Who Moved My Cheese. A couple of those are older books, but the principles in those books still stand true. You want to make sure that you've developed systems and processes within your business so that you don't stay in that startup phase where you're working long hours and where you're spending all of your time trying to figure out what do I need to do next? What do I need to do next? Where you're no longer stressed about it, but now you're just relaxing and you're just at the point where you're saying, okay, I have this individual who handles my marketing. I have someone who handles my operations. I can take a 2-week vacation and I know that my business will continue. That has to be the goal of a business owner, is that I can take a 2-week or a 4-week or whatever, however long a vacation I want, and know that my business will still be intact when I get back. And that's from processes. That's from the structure that you put into place. And that's from people understanding and hiring the right people. All of that is a part of it. Learn from your mistakes. Learn from your mistakes. That it's a learning process, and you're going to make mistakes, but maybe the first business is not the one that takes off and is successful. Maybe it's the second or third. That's okay. That's okay, as long as you learn from your mistakes. And then lastly, just do it. What is it? Nike said, just do it. Just do it. You got to start. You got to start. So I'm going to leave you all with some resources for starting a business. I'm not sure if this presentation will be available after, but I know that we've recorded this. We've recorded this session, so you can always go back and look at it. But this has a number of links. I put the Prince George's Community College Business and Entrepreneurship Department. There are classes that they offer here that can help you out and they help you dig a little deeper. There's not a lot you can do in an hour, so I just wanted to try to get a broad brush stroke on this one. Small Business Administration, they have a phenomenal website. There are a lot of classes that you can take to help you to understand not just the general business planning process, but some of the specifics of different business concepts. There's the Small Business Development Center. That's my organization. We provide counseling, one-on-one consulting to small businesses. That's not at a charge because we're supported by SBA. We're supported by federal and state funds, and so we're there to help small business owners. And most of the consultants in an organization like the Small Business, and this is for the Small Business Development Centers, the Women's Business Centers, the Veteran Business Outreach Centers, all of those all of these, they're all staffed by individuals who either own businesses or they were bankers in the small business arena or they manage small businesses. So they're all people who have real life on the ground experience. And so you want to try to avail yourself of these groups. And then there's the EDC, the Prince George's County Economic Development Corporation. There is an EDC in every county in the state of Maryland. And my guess is you'll find them wherever you go throughout the country, anywhere in the country. These organizations are set up to help you. They can help you with resources that are available for funding. They can help you with resources that are available for business consulting. So I strongly encourage you to just go on and check out some of these resources. And finally, that's my presentation. As I said earlier, one of my colleagues, Jennifer Funn, is teaching a class on starting a small business in Maryland. That's going to be offered on Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. So the same time from 4:30 to 5:30. She's going to go a little more in depth into the business planning piece of it. And she's going to give you a little more detail about how to actually register your business and pick a business name. And so some of the nuts and bolts of actually managing, running, starting and operating a business. Are there any questions? You can either write it in the chat or you can unmute yourselves. Okay, so hearing no questions, let me give you all I'll give you another minute, and if I don't hear any questions in another minute, I'm going to say thank you for participating. Thank you for joining my session. I really enjoyed this opportunity, and so I am going to let you all go.
Well, it's a very good session. It was high energy. And many of the folks on this call, this meeting, this workshop are in a business class. Some of them are developing business plans.
That's
And
why they
so-
all, oh, go ahead, finish.
Yeah, so thank you so much for firing them up
Thank
and
you,
sharing
Dr. Perry.
resources.
Thank you.
All
That's why
right.
that's why they had all the answers. Thank you, Dr. Perry.
How about that?
They had great answers. They had great answers. Again,
Yes,
thank
indeed.
you.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Okay, bye,
And
everybody.
thank you for signing up.
Sharon.